Hey everyone, in this video we're going to talk about 5 of the most common travel disasters and how you can avoid them, or how you can deal with them if and when they do happen. Most of the time traveling is a lot of fun, but once in a while disaster can strike. Between the two of us, we've had our fair share of travel disasters. We had a passport stolen, we lost our luggage, we missed a transatlantic flight, we got food poisoning, and we got turned away at the border, just to name a few.
Each of these travel disasters was really horrible at the time, but afterwards we realized there were things we could have done to avoid them or to cope with them a little bit better. And we want to share these tips with you in case you're ever faced with a bad situation when you're away from home. Obviously every situation is going to be different, so it's important that you do your own research for your trip and not just rely on these tips alone. This video is sponsored by NordVPN. We'll give you more information about them at the end and a discount code for a great deal on their VPN service. Getting sick with anything from a cold to food poisoning or even a tropical disease are all things that could happen when you're traveling. We've heard some pretty intense stories from other travelers about how they got sick while they were on the road, and I actually had the most violent food poisoning of my life on the first day of a trip to Australia a while back. It hit me so hard and so fast that I couldn't even get back to the hostel, and Matt had to leave me in a hotel bathroom while he went and looked for another hotel that was more affordable. After I'd recovered, we shared that story with our family and friends, and they were all wondering why we didn't go to the hospital because I was so sick, and the thought had never crossed our minds for some reason. But that's definitely something that we should have done at the time, because we had insurance and it would have been covered. So to help you avoid getting sick, or to deal with getting sick if it does happen, here are some tips to consider for your next trip. The number one thing you can do is to get travel health insurance for your entire trip so that your expenses are covered if you do need medical care, whether you've gotten sick or injured on your trip. If you do get sick or injured, don't hesitate to go to the hospital. It might seem a little extreme, but if you're not feeling well and you're in a different country, that's probably the best thing you can do. Find out if you need any vaccinations or medications for preventable illnesses before you travel to a new destination. In Canada, for example, we have a list on the government website of the vaccinations and other precautions you can take for the country you want to visit. You can also use a water purifier to make sure all of your drinking water is clean before drinking it. We've used a SteriPen in the past and we really liked it. This is one of Matt's favorite things to do, carrying hand sanitizer around in case you're about to eat and there's nowhere to wash your hands, or just if you're exploring and you're getting your hands dirty. And the last thing is a bit of a preventative tip, but you want to be as healthy as possible leading up to your trip and while you travel. So try to get as much sleep as you can, drink lots of water, eat tons of fruits and veggies whenever you get the chance. We also take vitamin C and echinacea to boost our immune systems. So basically do whatever you can to keep your immune system healthy when you travel.
When you're traveling, especially if you're traveling with minimal stuff, losing something essential can be devastating. Some of the most common ways that you can lose stuff on a trip is by forgetting them at a place you're staying, having something stolen, or losing your luggage in transit. So if you're worried about losing your checked luggage, one thing you can do is to plan to travel with only carry-on luggage. That way you have all your things with you at all times, and that's a great way to guarantee that you're not going to lose your luggage. If you're thinking about doing this, we actually did a video giving you some tips and advice on how to travel with only carry-on luggage, and I'll link to that in the description of this video. If that's not possible, we definitely recommend to clearly identify your suitcase, and more specifically, find a way to make your suitcase stand out from the rest, so that when people are picking up their baggage at the baggage claim, they don't mistake your suitcase for theirs. So this can really be anything. It can be a colorful piece of rope wrapped around the suitcase, something unique around the handle, anything that makes it look different. Also, make sure to clearly identify your bag so that if ever it does get lost, someone has a way to contact you. When we arrived in Iceland a couple years back, we actually lost our suitcase. It was a really generic looking black suitcase, and a lady actually picked that up instead of picking up hers. And then we had to find a way to meet up with her later to get our suitcase back. It was really annoying. So after that experience, we put a bright yellow piece of plastic on the zipper to make it stand out. Another thing you can do to reduce the stress of losing a checked bag is to put some of your essentials in a carry-on piece of luggage that you're going to bring with you at your seat on the plane. It can be whatever is most important for you on the trip, stuff that you really can't go without. For example, a change of clothes that you need at your destination, some medication, or some charging cables for your phone. But perhaps worse than losing your luggage would be to lose your passport or your wallet. So for this, really the best thing you can do is to avoid putting all your money and your cards and your passport in one place. For example, we'll carry some cash, a credit card, and a driver's license in our wallet, and we'll keep our passport, some cash, and a bank card in our passport holder. So that way, if either one of those gets lost or stolen, we still have some money and some ID. We also always travel with photocopies of our passports, and we leave a copy with someone back home. In your passport holder, you should always keep your passport in a Ziploc plastic bag to keep it dry and safe at all times. If your passport is lost, damaged, or stolen, it can be really inconvenient and expensive to get a new one in the country that you're visiting. But it's also not the end of the world. What you'll need to do is find out where your country's nearest consulate is and contact them to find out how to get a new passport. I actually had my passport stolen once when traveling in Rome, and it was really inconvenient. I had to get some new photos, prove my identity, pay a fee, and we also had to wait several days for the passport to arrive. So it was a pretty expensive and annoying process, and to be avoided if at all possible.
Some countries in the world have more stable climates and political situations than others. Before traveling anywhere, it's a good idea to research your destination and to find out if there are any elections, protests, wars, or discrimination going on, and to find out if the area you're traveling to is prone to natural disasters like hurricanes, fires, earthquakes, volcanoes, and things like that. If you're traveling to a risky area, you should probably leave an itinerary with someone back home, as well as a way for them to get in touch with you in case there's an emergency. If your government offers this service, you can also register your trip on their website so that they know where you are in case anything major happens in the country you're traveling to. Depending on the situation, you could also consider packing some essentials like a water purifier, energy bars, a first aid kit, and even a mini portable solar panel or a battery pack to keep your phone charged so you can stay connected in an emergency. And of course, if anything major happens while you're away, don't hesitate to contact your embassy or your consulate if you need help for anything.
One of the most expensive parts of traveling is transportation. So if you paid for a flight, a train, or a bus, you really want to make sure you don't miss it. This might sound obvious, but after years of travel experience, a couple years ago we still managed to miss a flight from Spain to Canada. We had misread our departure time the night before, and we didn't think to double check again the day that we were leaving. So that mistake cost us around $3,000 because we had to get new tickets that same day. So now we double check and triple check to make 100% sure that we don't miss our departure time. And we make sure to both look at the departure times to make sure there's no mistake. For international flights, we always make sure to be at the airport at least 3 hours ahead of time. And most of the time we end up going even earlier than that, and it's just less stressful that way. If ever you miss a connection flight and you've planned your trip with the same airline, usually they have to cover your meals, transportation, and hotel until you get to your next destination, so you have to go find their office at the airport to get the vouchers. Another good tip here is to try and book your trips with the same airline. That way they're responsible for your connecting flights. Another thing you can do is to get travel insurance, which might cover some of your expenses in situations like this.
Most countries have strict rules about who can enter the country, how long they can stay, whether they need a visa, and what they're allowed to bring in and out of the country. It can be confusing to sort it all out, but it's really important to make sure you have all the information and documentation before you set off on a trip to a new destination. The consequences of making a mistake when you're trying to enter or exit a country can be very serious. And it's not just about missing out on your trip, it could be as bad as getting banned from the country or being subject to their laws, which might be a lot stricter than where you're from. We were turned away at the US border once when we arrived in our van, and it was our own fault. We've crossed the border between Canada and the US so many times that we just assumed as soon as they saw our passport that they would let us through. But that time they wanted proof of our ties to Canada, they wanted proof that we had paid income taxes, that we had a job in Canada, and all kinds of details like that. They also wanted to see that we had enough money for the trip, and some of it had to be in cash in the US currency, which we also didn't have much of. So we didn't do our research, we hadn't prepared properly, and we were turned away. We really appreciate the privilege of being able to travel to new countries, and so now we take border crossings much more seriously. So learn from us and do your research before you travel into any new countries.
Hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any travel disaster stories and how you survived them, we'd love to see them in the comments. We also want to thank NordVPN again for sponsoring this video. VPN stands for Virtual Private Network, and it's basically a service that you can activate when you're surfing the web to give you a secure connection. Like when you want to log into your bank account from a coffee shop, for example. NordVPN's offering our audience a pretty good deal with 75% off a 3-year plan, which ends up being $2.99 a month if you average it out. You can get the deal at nordvpn.com/exploringalternatives and use our Exploring Alternatives discount code to get an extra month free. We've been using NordVPN for over 6 months now, and we love being able to turn it on whenever we're using a public Wi-Fi network, which is almost all the time. They have servers all around the world, so you can choose to browse from Albania all the way to Vietnam, and you can use it as much as you want because there's no bandwidth limit. So the link to get the 75% off deal is nordvpn.com/exploringalternatives, and you can get an extra month free with our Exploring Alternatives discount code. We'll put a link to all this in the description of the video. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. See you next time.